Well, this is a developing aspect of what's happening in Europe and the UK. Queen Elizabeth is to block attempts by traitorous politicians to stop Brexit. This by Sean Adel to Batabayan News Punch. Queen Elizabeth is set to block any attempts by traitorous British politicians who intend to subvert democracy and stop Brexit. As we know, the people of the United Kingdom, Britain, voted for Brexit. And so the Queen is there to make sure that the people's votes count. According to government sources, the Queen will be advised to refuse to grant the royal assent to any parliamentary legislation that blocks the UK from leaving the EU. Breitbart reports the confirmation came from a senior minister who spoke to the Telegraph following publication of a policy exchange paper on the subject by Sir Stephen Laws, QC, a former First Parliament counsel. Remain MPs are currently advancing various plots to take control of the Brexit process from Theresa May, the Prime Minister, who is at least nominally opposed to delaying exit day, scheduling a rerun of the 2016 referendum, or ruling out a clean, no-deal withdrawal from the EU. The most controversial of these is a scheme devised by Dominique Grieve, the former Attorney General, who wants to allow a minority of MPs to take control of the Parliament timetable. This would be unprecedented, but the Remain backing Speaker of the House of Commons, John Bercow, already broke with centuries of precedent to allow Grieve to amend an unamendable business motion against the advice of parliamentary clerks shortly after a meeting with the Tory MP in his Grace and Favour apartments in the Palace of Westminster. Quote, might not a government in this situation think that this was precisely the last resort for which the royal assent process is retained? End quote, asked Sir Stephen rhetorically. Quote, it could raise a question whether the government would be entitled or might feel required to reassert its constitutional veto by advising the Queen not to grant royal assent to the bill, end quote. Quote, I have seen Sir Stephen Laws QC's view. He is quite right. Dominique Grieve and co. had better think long and hard before potentially involving the Queen in such controversy, end quote, a senior minister told the Telegraph. Quote, if Parliament publishes an act against government policy, what are we left with? Do we just surrender meekly? No, I don't think we do. We have to think about the position they are putting the palace in, end quote. That's what they added. The royal assent has not been refused to a bill since the reign of Queen Anne in the 1700s, largely because the British constitutional system, which blends the executive with the legislature, makes it very unlikely that a bill opposed by the government would pass all the parliamentary hurdles necessary to reach the monarch. The Queen, that is, in this case. It's highly unlikely the Queen would, as a constitutional monarch, refuse the royal assent to a bill on her own initiative, but would instead do so on the advice of her ministers, with it being open to Parliament to depose said ministers in a vote of no confidence if they were sufficiently unhappy with this. Another option open to the government is to suspend the parliamentary session temporarily, a process called prorogation, typically used for routine matters such as recesses, which remains an exclusive executive power through the royal prerogative. With exit day currently fixed at March 29, 2019, that's in only 2 months, by the European Union Withdrawal Act, figures including historian Andrew Roberts and commentator Gerald Warner have already called on the Prime Minister to exercise his power, so Remain MPs cannot derail the process in the meantime. While some people, including BBC contributor and Economist editor Anne McElvoy, had claimed that this would be despotic, proponents argue that proroguing Parliament would be in fact be a perfectly legitimate constitutional response to legislators attempting to overrun the 2016 referendum without a mandate, considering over 80% of MPs stood on manifestos pledging to deliver Brexit and take the United Kingdom out of the EU's custom union and free movement regime. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.